Look at this field. Dead, gray, starving. For a century, the only way to save it was to build a factory and burn massive amounts of natural gas. We turned fossil fuels into food, but in 2025 the equation changed forever. We found a way to pull fertilizer directly from thin air, using nothing but biology. No factories, no smoke, just life. We just learned how to feed 8 billion people without cooking the planet. And it starts with a single, invisible microbe. Here is the terrifying truth. Half of the nitrogen in your body right now came from a fossil fuel factory. Without synthetic fertilizer, 4 billion people would starve within months. We are addicted to a process that is killing us. This industry consumes nearly 2% of the world's entire energy supply. It emits more CO2 than all of Germany. We were trapped between mass starvation and climate collapse. Until the breakthroughs of mid-2025 broke the cage. To understand the solution, you have to meet the villain. Or the hero. It's complicated. Meet the Haber-Bosch process. In the early 1900s, humanity hit a wall. We were running out of natural fertilizer. Famine was mathematically guaranteed. The air is 78% nitrogen. Plants swim in it, but they can't use it. It's like dying of thirst in the ocean. Nitrogen atoms are locked together by a triple bond, one of the strongest bonds in nature. Breaking it requires insane energy. Fritz Haber found a way. High heat, high pressure, and a catalyst. He smashed the air until it surrendered ammonia. It worked. It triggered the population explosion of the 20th century. We turned natural gas into bread. But the cost was invisible. For every ton of ammonia produced, we released 2 tons of carbon dioxide. It's a dirty trade, and it made our food supply dependent on dictators and gas prices. When gas prices spike, food prices spike. Farmers are held hostage by supply chains that stretch across oceans. If the ships stop, the harvest fails. We tried to fix it. We built wind farms to power the factories, but the chemistry itself was the bottleneck. Haber-Bosch needs massive scale to be efficient. You can't build a small one. It forces centralization. This centralization means fertilizer has to be trucked thousands of miles. More carbon, more cost, more fragility. Scientists knew nature had a better way. Bacteria on the roots of legumes do this for free. Quietly. Efficiently. But we couldn't teach corn or wheat to do the same trick. We spent decades failing to copy nature. The problem seemed unsolvable. We were stuck with the factories. Until the summer of 2025 changed the rules. 2 breakthroughs happened almost simultaneously, one in a massive plant in Australia, one in a tiny lab in California. First, the industrial pivot. Engineers finally cracked green ammonia at scale. No gas, just water, air, and renewable electricity. Instead of burning gas to get hydrogen, they used giant electrolyzers to split water. Clean hydrogen meets nitrogen. It sounds simple, but it was always too expensive. In 2025, the cost of solar dropped enough to make it competitive. But the second breakthrough was the real magic. Bioengineering. We stopped trying to build factories and started coding life. A startup engineered a bacteria that doesn't just live on legumes. It colonizes the roots of corn and wheat. Think of it as a software update for crops. You coat the seeds, plant them, and the factory grows with the plant. These microbes pull nitrogen from the air pockets in the soil and feed it directly to the root. Delivery service. No runoff, no pollution. The plant gets exactly what it needs, exactly when it needs it. Zero waste. For the first time, we decoupled food production from fossil fuels. The link was shattered. Farmers didn't need to buy expensive chemical sacks anymore. They just needed the microbes. It started small. Field trials in the Midwest, but the data that came back in 2025 shocked everyone. Yields were matching chemical fertilizers. The plants were healthier, and the carbon footprint, near zero. This wasn't just an incremental improvement. It was the end of an era. The Haber-Bosch monopoly was over. But to really understand why this works, we need to shrink down. Way down, to the atomic level. Nature uses a specific enzyme called nitrogenase. It's a biological hammer that cracks the nitrogen bond. The problem is, nitrogenase hates oxygen. If oxygen touches it, the enzyme stops working. It dies. That's why these bacteria usually live in nodules, little bunkers on the roots that keep oxygen out. The breakthrough in 2025 was engineering bacteria that create a slime layer to protect the enzyme anywhere. This means they don't need the nodules anymore. They can live on the surface of the root, right in the soil. They essentially built a microscopic spacesuit for the enzyme. It can work in the open, feeding the plant constantly. Meanwhile, the green ammonia plants solve the intermittency problem. Wind doesn't always blow. Sun doesn't always shine. They developed thermal batteries, storing solar heat in molten salt to run the process 24/7. This crashed the cost. Suddenly, green fertilizer wasn't a luxury product. It was cheaper than the dirty stuff. Think about the logistics. Haber-Bosch requires huge pressures, 200 atmospheres. That's dangerous. The new modular plants run at much lower pressures. Safer, smaller. You can put one in every county. This brings us to the concept of distributed production. We stop moving fertilizer across the world. We make it where we need it. It turns a global supply chain into a local loop. And the bacteria? You can brew them. Once you have the starter culture, you can multiply it yourself. It's like sourdough bread. You don't buy yeast every time. You keep the culture alive. This terrifies the big chemical companies. They can't patent a farmer brewing their own supply. They are trying to switch to a subscription model. License the bacteria for one season only. But life finds a way. Open, source versions of these microbes are already appearing on the dark web. We are seeing the Napsterization of agriculture. Information, genetic information, wants to be free. But beyond the politics, the chemistry is undeniable. We have unlocked the nitrogen cycle. For 100 years, we forced nature with fire and pressure. Now, we are asking nature nicely. The implications of this shift are staggering. It changes more than just farming. It changes the geopolitical map of the world. And that brings us to the big reveal. This technology kills the resource curse. Countries rich in gas used to dominate food. Not anymore. Any country with sun, wind, and soil can now be energy and food independent. Total sovereignty. Sub-Saharan Africa, which has starved for fertilizer due to cost, suddenly has the advantage. They have the most sun. They can produce green ammonia cheaper than Europe or the US. We are looking at a massive wealth transfer. From gas states to sun states. And it solves the runoff problem. The dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. It could heal. When you feed the plant directly, you don't dump tons of excess nitrogen into the rivers. This is the biggest environmental cleanup project in history, disguised as an agricultural revolution. But the most mind-blowing part, we can use these bacteria to terraform. If we can fix nitrogen on barren soil here, we can do it on degraded land. Or even other planets. We are turning the biological key that unlocks life on dead rocks. It proves that scarcity is a choice. We chose the expensive way for 100 years. Now we have chosen the smart way. And the results are already hitting the dinner table. Prices are stabilizing. The fear of food inflation is vanishing. The panic is subsiding. We just lived through the quietest, most important revolution of our lifetimes. Let's look at the numbers. In mid-2025, the first green ammonia super plant went online in Texas. It produces 500 tons a day, zero carbon, powered entirely by West Texas wind. Farmers in the Midwest who adopted the microbial seed coating reported saving 100 per acre. That's the difference between bankruptcy and profitability for a family farm. It saves the family business. The shipping industry is shifting too. Ammonia isn't just fertilizer, it's a fuel. Green ammonia can power ships. It burns clean. Water and nitrogen are the only exhaust. We are solving the food crisis and the shipping emissions crisis with the same molecule. Investment is pouring in. Billions from venture capital. Green nitrogen is the new gold rush. But unlike crypto or AI, this isn't virtual. You can eat the results. Grocery stores are beginning to label Produce ground with green nitrogen. It's a premium stamp. Consumers are choosing it. They want food that didn't destroy the climate. This consumer pressure forces the big corporations to adapt. Adapt or die. We are watching the rapid obsolescence of the old oil-based agriculture. It's happening fast. By 2030, analysts predict 50% of the world's fertilizer will be green. That is lightning speed. But statistics are cold. Let's look at what this means for one person. One farmer. Meet Elias. He farms 500 acres in Nebraska. His family has worked this land for 4 generations. In 2022, fertilizer prices tripled. Elias nearly lost the farm. He couldn't afford to plant. He had to choose buy less fertilizer and get a poor harvest, or take a loan he couldn't repay. He felt helpless. His livelihood was tied to the price of natural gas in Russia. Then he heard about the microbial coating trials. His neighbors called it snake oil. He was desperate. He took the risk. He planted 100 acres with the bio seeds. For weeks he watched. The neighbor's chemical corn shot up fast. His looked normal. He thought he made a mistake. He couldn't sleep. The bank was calling. But then, a drought hit midsummer. The neighbor's corn withered. Shallow roots. Elias went to check his field. It was still green. The microbes had encouraged deeper roots. He pulled up a stalk. The roots were massive. Covered in life. They were finding water. Harvest time came. His yield wasn't just good, it was his best in 10 years. And he hadn't spent a dime on gas-based nitrogen. His profit margin doubled. He paid off the loan. He kept the farm. He broke the cycle of debt. Now, his neighbors are asking for the seeds. The skepticism is gone. Elias isn't an environmentalist. He's a businessman. He switched because it worked. That is how real change happens. Not with a slogan, but with a better harvest. Elias looks at his soil differently now. It's not just dirt, it's a partner. He fed his family, paid his bills, and healed his land, all at once. Elias is just one of millions. This story is repeating on every continent. The era of the desperate farmer is ending. The era of the empowered farmer has begun, and it's all because we finally learned to listen to the microbes. So, where does this go next? 5 years out, we see the nitrogen grid. Small ammonia plants act like batteries for the electric grid. When wind is high, make fertilizer. When wind is low, turn the ammonia back into electricity. It stabilizes the whole system. Farming becomes the battery of the future. The field powers the city. 10 years out, we start bioengineering other traits. Drought resistance, salt tolerance. We could grow wheat in the Sahara. We could grow corn in the salt flats of Utah. We stop fighting the environment and start adapting the plant. Precision evolution. 20 years out. We might not need fertilizer at all. We could engineer the plant itself to fix nitrogen. Skip the bacteria. Skip the factory. Every plant becomes a self-sustaining machine. The ultimate goal of synthetic biology. This frees up land. If yields double, we can return half of our farmland to nature. Imagine re-wilding an area the size of South America. Because we don't need it for crops anymore. This is the path to solving the biodiversity crisis. We make room for the rest of life. Of course, there are risks. Monocultures. Genetic drift. We have to be careful. But the alternative, burning the planet to feed ourselves, was a suicide pact. We have broken that pact. We have signed a new treaty with the Earth. A treaty based on biology, not geology. On renewal, not extraction. We are moving from the age of fire to the age of life. It's a cleaner, quieter, greener world. And it's already here. The factories are closing. The roots are glowing. The revolution is silent. We used to look at the sky for rain. Now we look at the soil for answers. We aren't just farmers anymore. We are microbiome managers. And we are just getting started. There is a profound lesson here. For a century, we thought more meant bigger. Bigger factories. Bigger machines. Bigger chemistry. We tried to overpower nature. But the solution to feeding the world wasn't bigger. It was microscopic. We found infinite abundance in the invisible. In the things we ignored. We are learning that true technology isn't metal and silicon. It's biology. Biology has had 4 billion years of R&D. It knows how to fix nitrogen. We just had to be humble enough to ask for the recipe. This is the end of the brute force era. The end of the Haber-Bosch century. We are entering the era of symbiosis. Partnering with the planet. We fixed the sky by fixing the soil. We fed the people by feeding the roots. The famine is cancelled. The planet is breathing. It turns out, we can have our bread and eat it too. Without burning down the bakery. Green nitrogen isn't just a breakthrough. It's a promise kept. A promise that we can live on this earth without consuming it. The future is green, and it starts at the roots. This has been Behind the Breakthroughs. If you believe in a greener future, hit subscribe. Next time, we are looking at the ocean, specifically, mining the sea floor. Is it a necessary evil for batteries? Or an environmental disaster waiting to happen? You don't want to miss that debate. Click the bell so you're notified. And a question for you, would you trust food grown with bio-engineered bacteria? Or do you prefer the old chemical way? Let us know in the comments.